Welcome, everyone. I have a very special guest today.
My name is Goldis. I was born and raised here in the UK, but my parents are fully Irani, and I am also myself fully Irani. And I love everything to do with our culture and what it means to be Iranian. Obviously, that has come with its own challenges. I think trying to figure out who you are is hard as it is as you're growing up. But I think especially when you have this dichotomy of, you know, in the four walls of our house, it's very Iranian. You can tell just by the design of the house. But outside, I think it's obviously more integrating with other people's cultures and finding that balance can be challenging. But yeah, I'm currently still in university. I have one more year left. And yeah, that's pretty much all for the intro.
Fantastic. I don't know how you can manage all this. You are a university student. You're also doing quite a lot of arts and culture activities alongside your university. So that's great. And you're also one of the generations that end up in university after COVID. The whole
Yes.
thing changed. How did you, or you're still dealing with the situations during
Yeah.
lockdown and all the complications? Tell us a little bit about the university life after COVID.
I think it's fair to say the aftermath of COVID is still happening and we're going through more waves, even though there's no lockdowns, thankfully. There's still obviously the effects of it. I think it has been a challenge. I think seeing a lot of my course that's very meant to be physical and in person. So we do a lot of anatomy and dissections, and it's been hard to do and transition that into just watching videos of it. But thankfully now we've definitely sort of phased back into doing more in-person things. And I think I'm just very grateful that obviously it's possible to do it now because I think we realize that actually we can take things for granted when it was all taken away. So yeah, we're still hanging in there, but I think we've got a way to go before we get back to any form of proper normality.
Yeah, but as you said, we tend to forget all the good things that we have, and
Exactly.
when we come to a situation like what we had since 2020, we realize life wasn't that difficult before.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's human nature, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. So, but I'm glad that the most difficult part of it is behind us. Obviously, a lot of people died, a lot of people suffered a lot as a result of COVID, and
Yeah.
it was difficult for all of us. So, yeah, slowly we are finding our way back to a little bit of normality. So it's great. I think one of the places that I end up visiting after COVID was Manchester Museum, and was opening of the tell me about it. Was it the exhibition that you had?
Yes,
So
exhibition.
yeah, I enjoyed very much the pieces that you read, both in Persian and English, your poetry. And currently, if for people who visit Manchester Museum, they could still see your work
Yes.
in there alongside some of the old artifacts that are related to that region, Middle East and Iran. So it is very lucky to be in that situation, to have that opportunity. So would you like to tell us a little bit about this project?
So this was an opportunity that really sort of came out of nowhere. And I really didn't expect, and I don't think any of us had any idea because it wasn't only me, there were several other artists as well that were working as part of their own individual projects. We really didn't know exactly where it was going, but we knew the base and the intention for the project, and that was to ask questions, and I think we don't. I don't think we ask enough questions, especially when we look at these big, you know, authorities like a museum. It has such an important job, and yet I don't think there's enough question marks around why and how certain things end up there. And it was an insightful experience because I feel like I learned a lot about how museums work. The base of our project was very sociology, it had some archaeology involved. And then I think we all kind of went in our own avenues with what we wanted to talk about. But it was very much directed by the objects. So we were working with some researchers and some archaeologists and some PhD students on sort of looking through the archives of Manchester Museum and pulling anything that was related to the Middle East. So that was countries like Syria, Iraq, Iran involved as well, Palestine, and looking at these objects, questioning where they had come from and who had got them, from where had they got them, and had they even given the right information about what this object was. And it was very overwhelming, I must say, because I think we felt a lot of emotions, and one of which was anger. I know that that's what I felt a lot of the time, and having to come to terms with that and to channel that energy into creating something that I could show for was a big challenge. But now it's done and it's in the museum, so it feels good. It feels good to see it go from A to Z.
Fantastic. Yeah, this thing about not questioning. I think we come from a culture that we are encouraged not to question, basically. Yeah. And also in here, there is this thing about authority. We all, as human beings, we tend to be a little bit submissive, I think, when we come to people or organization of power. So it's great that projects like the one that you were involved actually do exist. Give us that opportunity. So what was the project called, and who was behind organizing that project? How could we find out more if you are interested? Well, tell us, please.
So it was the Manchester, I'm just trying to look up the name for you. But Sarah Lynn and Caitlin were involved a lot, and also Jenny were the main youth researchers. I can provide you with the link of everything later on if you want to include it on your website. Or
that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, so there's a link to the site, and it gives you a little biography for each of the youth researchers that were involved, one of which was me, and it tells us a little bit about who we are and our activities, a little bit of like an intro, and then it delves more into our individual projects, which are very unique and personal to ourselves. I think it would be good for people to go, and maybe if they are intrigued to learn a little bit more about like behind the scenes of the project, then that would be the website to look through. But other than that, everything is in the museum and the archaeology exhibit, so it's all there.
Yeah, that's great. And one of the outcome of your project was a poem. Was it written in one particular language and then translated?
Yes. So I felt more comfortable approaching the contents and the story that's in the poem in English, because that's what I was good at with regards to researching. I was better at doing that in English because of the nature of my university and just all the training and being raised here. So I felt more comfortable doing effective researching, but then I knew that I definitely wanted this translated in Farsi and to have this big sort of just scripture of Farsi in the museum, because I'd seen a lot of little tributes to the Middle East scattered throughout the Manchester Museum, one of which being the amazing ancient Egyptian gallery and exhibition, which I think is gorgeous. But I hadn't seen anything for a long time that was Iranian and that I could look at and be like, oh my God, that's where I'm from, or that's like from the motherland. So it was something really important to me to have it in both languages. So I initially wrote it all in English, and then I had to think, I translated it to the best of my abilities and then had to have it edited. I was like, Mum, does this make sense in this context? So I actually think my Farsi got a much like even better with through this process and this project, because I had to learn a lot more about the formal writing version of Farsi. And that was really pleasant, actually. So
Very good. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. So before we ask you to read the poem, it would be great to hear you saying something in Farsi. So if you want, tell us a little bit about how do you think the project has helped you to get to terms with who you are, basically, get to know yourself a little bit better, or if it has helped you in terms of your knowledge about Iran. How did it work?
Yeah.
If you want to say it in Persian, that would be great. If you prefer to say it in English, it's up to you.
Let's
فارسی
see.
یا انگلیسی، هر کدوم میخوای.
ببینیم، فکر کنم با هر دوتا راحت باشم. ولی در مورد اینکه چقدر، یعنی در مورد ایرانی بودن یاد گرفتم خیلی خیلی زیاد. ما اون موقعی که این آبجکت ها رو بهمون داد، یعنی خودمون اکسس داشتیم به آرشیوهای خود موزه، بعد بر اساس اون میتونستیم مثلا فیلتر بزنیم. اوکی، من مثلا یه آبجکتی میخواستم که در رابطه با ایران بود که اینقدر اینا قدیمیان که میشد مثلا اون موقع که اسم ایران نبود، با پروژه. واسه همین we looked for ancient Persian artifacts که میبینیم چی میومد بالا، و اینکه آبجکت من انتخابش کردم و زیر کاتگوری جولری و جواهر بود. و این برام خیلی عجیب بود، چون هر چه نگاش میکردم از دور از نزدیک تابش میدادم، واقعا برام عجیب بود که این چجوری جولری مثلا فیلتر شده و اضافه شده. و خیلی سخت بود اون چندین هفته‌های اول پروژه بر اساس اینکه به علاوه اینکه نمیدونستیم دقیقاً دایرکشنمون چیه یا مثلا میخوایم چی کار کنیم که ایمپکت داشته باشه و تاثیرگذار باشه، به علاوه این من اصلا نمیدونستم آبجکتم در مورد چی بود. تا بعدش با یکی از خانمایی که ایرانی بودن و جزء شیبه آرتس بودن که ما رو کمک کردن، اسمش هم فرشته جون بود، که اینو اومد دید، گفت که این ضحاکه. و من هم تو اون لحظه گفتم کی؟ گفت ضحاک. و حالا برمیگردم به جواب دادن سوالتون و اینکه در مورد خودم چی یاد گرفتم. به خاطر اینکه اون لحظه حس خوبی نداشتم، حتی میشه گفت یه ذره like به قول انگلیسی ها I felt guilty یا حتی some shame، که من خودم نمیدونستم، با اینکه یه دختر ایرانیم، نمیدونستم مثلا در مورد شاهنامه یا مثلا یکی از داستانهای خیلی معروف تو شاهنامه که همون داستان ضحاکه، من نمیدونستم. بعد دیگه چون که آخرای سشنمون بود، دیگه وقت نداشتیم که تمام داستان رو بیاد برام از اول بگه و توضیح بده و تعریف کنه. خلاصه دیگه من فقط اسمش رو نوشتم و رفتم خونه همون شب ریسرچ کردم که ضحاک کیه و داستانش رو اینطوری یاد گرفتم. و تو اون لحظه میگم حسای مختلف بود. هم خوشحال بودم از اینکه خب فاینالی متوجه شدم که این چیه، و خیلی بیشتر قدرت داشتم چون که این قشنگ یعنی هدف پروژه بود که ما میایم، یا مثلا خیلی میان از کشورهای دیگه وسایل برمیدارن، حالا میخرن، بعد میارنشون این بر. خب که چی؟ مثلا دلیل آوردنش چی بوده؟ و اگر تو مثلا همچین کاری رو کردی، حداقل مثلا اون چیزی که برداشتی خوب نشون بده، یا حداقل درست بگو که چیه، چون جواهر نبود، هر چی بود. واسه همین قشنگ هدف پروژه اونجا تازه برای من واضح شد که نقش من چیه و میخوام چی کار کنم. و اینکه آره خیلی چیزا یاد گرفتم و اینکه الان علاقه بیشتر دارم به اینکه بیشتر یاد بگیرم در مورد شاهنامه و مثلا یه کتابی که بهش انگلیسی میگن دیگه epic، یعنی it's an essence of what it's like to be truly Iranian و اینو جزء وظیفه‌ام میدونم که یاد بگیرم به عنوان یه دختری که ایرانیه.
Very good. Now, خیلی ممنون برای فارسی که برامون صحبت کردی. موفق باشی عزیز. حالا با اجازه برمیگردیم به انگلیسی. You mentioned Zahak. How interesting that Zahak lives in Manchester. Fantastic. I think if we go to the link that you're going to give me to share with our audience, they should be able to see the picture of your artifact that you'll be working on. But if you just provide some sort of explanation what it looked like, and then we could go to your poem.
Of course. So the object itself is a bronze finial. So it has Zahak's silhouette. And for anyone watching and not knowing who this Zahak is, he's basically a villain, a character that is featured in one of the stories in the Shahnameh, which is this masterpiece and is true to being Iranian and captures the essence of being Iranian. And I think, so it's about this serpent king. So it's this king that had, he was a villain and he had two serpents coming out of his shoulders. So that is kind of what the object is trying to show, although it's not very clear, which is why it took some time for us to put two and two together. But that is what it's showing. It's the silhouette of Zahak, which is this villain.
Fantastic. So thank you very much for the story as well. The actual poem that you wrote, I think it would be a good time to hear that. Both,
which one would you like to hear first?
If we hear the Persian version first and then the English version, I would appreciate.
Okay, let me load it up for you. Okay, so سرنوشت ابدی ضحاک. افسوس او اهریمنی بود که به قعر ظلمت و بی‌حسی در افتاده بود. من اکنون سرنوشتم را در دو جهان متناوب زندگی کرده ام. گویی یک عمر کافی نبوده است. یکی ملال انگیزتر از دیگری. پیامد طبیعی ریشه‌کن شدم. از جوهر وجودی خود جدا شده. در من هنوز میل به وحشت افکنی و شهرت زنده است. او که ارزش معرفی، شهرت و حتی بدنامی را ندارد، مرا به اینجا کشاند تا هوس سفیدها را برآورده کنم. سفیدهایی که برای رازهای افسانه‌ام و ابهتی که داشتم بهایی قائل نیستند. برای چشمان خالی از شناخت آنها، من تنها جواهری برنزیم. حتی مارهایم که زمانی روی شانه‌هایم جولان می‌دادند، پوست انداخته و به کرم تبدیل شده اند. من ترجیح می‌دهم در هراس از فریدون زندگی کنم تا در بایگانی تاریخ. من ترجیح می‌دهم 1000 بار بمیرم تا اینکه تسلیم این هیچستان شوم. امان از بوسه‌هایی که بر شانه‌هایم کاشته شد، امان از مارهایی که رشد کردند. امان از بیداد سرنوشت که من را چنین اسیر در خدمت نگاه تو قرار داد. امان از سرنوشت ضحاک در دست امثال فریدون یا میستر جیکاک. حتی مرگ جسمیم در بالای کوه دماوند پایانی بر این سرنوشت و ملال روزگار نبود.
Very good. Merci Goldis John. For people who are going to hear the English version of the poem soon, I wanted to add something if you are not familiar with Zahak. As Goldis John said, Zahak had a huge snake or serpent on his shoulders. And one way to keep them quiet or stop them harming Zahak himself was to feed them the brain of young people. So one thing that Zahak had to do was to kill 2 young person every day to feed their brain to these serpents on his shoulder. He was actually killing a lot of young people because he wanted to survive himself. And in Goldis's poetry was written in such a way that you almost feel sorry for Zahak. So it's I think that's very powerful in that term. So can we hear the English version as well, please?
Of course. So this is the English version, titled The Lasting Fate of Zahak. Alas, a villain was paralyzed into a numb abyss. I have lived out my destiny now in 2 alternate universes, one more melancholic than the other, the natural consequence of being uprooted, removed of substance and muchness. I crave the fear, the reputation. He who I refuse to name to prevent him any more notoriety and fame dragged me overseas for the white people to please. Yet they don't value the myth, the legend, the vigor. To their uncultured eyes, I am but a bronze jewel. And so the snakes that were once upon my shoulders have since shed their skin and transformed into worms. I would rather live subdued by the anxiety of Feridun than in archives. I would rather die 1,000 deaths than to be subjected to this nothingness. Oh, by the kisses that were planted upon my shoulders, and oh, by the snakes that grew, oh, by the decisions that were made, and oh, by the terrain that led me to you. Oh, by the fate of Zahak at the hands of Feridun or Mr. Smith, even the mountains of Damavand cannot satisfy me from this blue.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Well done. I just hope the project hasn't come to an end and it carries on, or does it? Are you expected to go back and work on it? And are we likely to see more work like that from you?
So actually we've been given more projects to work on, and we're hoping to expand the intention behind this project into kind of little mini projects, but also looking to see how we can continue the work, because I think this was a very insightful experience, not just for the researchers, but also for the people that came and saw the exhibition that's still in Manchester Museum now. I've had a lot of positive feedback, and we've spoken a lot with the actual museum guards and the people that are sort of behind creating and curating these exhibitions, and they've all had really positive feedback. So I think it's been really interesting to see. I think it's exactly what Manchester Museum needed as well. So we're looking to expand, we're looking to work on more projects. So hopefully the answer to that is yes, there's more work to be done.
That's for us. Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. Obviously, for a city, a cosmopolitan city like Manchester, when people, different cultures live alongside each other, I think it's very important to highlight projects like the one that you did. So well done, Manchester Museum.
Yeah, well done.
Project, and well done you and the whole team for being involved in it. Goldis John, has any of your university friends or ex-high school friends have seen the work? And if they have, what did they think?
Yeah, so I've had quite a few friends who knew about it and went to the museum and saw it in a sort of act of support, which is obviously lovely and greatly appreciated. But then I also had a few incidences where I think someone who didn't know I was doing this project, I probably maybe haven't been in contact with them, saw my name and then messaged me and was like, is this you? And I'm like, yes, it is. So it's been a mix, but I think the overall feedback is predominantly positive, which is obviously very lovely to see.
Well done. We are all very proud of you, Goldis John, for being there and holding up the flag of Persian objects in the museum. So grateful to you for everything that you've done. In terms of someone like yourself who lives in England, we're coming from different cultures. What do you think is the secret of being positive, being proud of who you are, and achieving?
I think the best thing I could say is that you need to practice patience, but then also be intentional about the work that needs to be done. I think, obviously, I'm still in my early 20s, but I would say the first half of my life has been more on the defensive and more on trying to fit in. That, in my opinion, had priority. But I think as you get older, you start to ask questions about, okay, where is this and where does this come from? And I think there's, even when I was going through that early phase of, prioritizing fitting in, I knew some things that were straight facts for me, and that was how much I love my culture and how much it meant to me. And I think if at any point I didn't discuss it was because of the protectiveness I had over it. And so I don't think it was something I wanted to showcase, because I think showing so much of what means to you can be very, very vulnerable. But I do think you have to be intentional and learn about the history, especially we're so lucky to be Iranian and we have access to some of the most richest and most diverse histories and stories, and there's so much to look at and study. And thankfully, in this day and age of technology, it's all very, very much accessible. And even with reading my poem, a lot of it in the English version will definitely not make sense to anyone that is not familiar with Zahhak's story. So if you actually visit in the museum, you'll see a QR code that links to the story, and I've written it all out for you guys. And there's also a little bit of a description and sort of an analysis on what the poem is about, and what Zahhak is referring to, because it's from the point of view of Zahhak. But yeah, I think there's so much to love. So why focus on the things that aren't to love? And if you focus on, as you said, using the word nurture, you'll be surprised at what blossoms from that.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, thank you, Goldis John. Yeah,
Thank you.
Those of you who might be interested in visiting Manchester Museum, do look up for Goldis's. The actual poem is still there, isn't it?
Yeah, the poem's there, the object, and a little description. And we've got some skeleton snakes to sort of show the silhouette of Zahhak as well. So the intention behind the poem and the artwork, when it was blown up on that big frame, was to kind of mimic the finial. So the finial was exactly that. And I tried to mimic it with having it in real life size, and it's been good actually, because it's attracting a lot of younger children, because they're like, ooh, these snakes, are they alive, are they dead? So it was very tact and strategic, but it's paid off, sorry.
Obviously, Manchester Museum has recently gone through a refurbishment, and for anyone who might be interested in visiting, there are quite a lot of things to look through, but you and other young people who have been involved in the project, you've got different pieces highlighted throughout the museum, so it's good to hunt for them, if you like, and go and find it. And as you said, there is a QR code there for further information if they are interested and want to find out. And obviously, we're going to have the link to Goldis's work, basically, and also the project in general, what was done, which is going to be really great. Okay, right. Anything else that you would like to talk about now?
No, I think everything's been said, but thank you so much for obviously the opportunity. I think the honor is mine, Shahira Jun. You're the Irani phrase is Hamafan Harif. You're
Nice.
a jack of all trades, and it's an honor to be able to even just sit down and talk with you. I think seeing the work that you do with the Friends of Shahnameh is also really inspiring, and I think is exactly what a lot of us first generation immigrants would love to see. It kind of gives us a little light to follow and a path that's highlighted for us to be able to navigate learning more about our culture. So yeah, thank you for everything that you do as well.
Thank you, darling. It's been an honor to have you, and we wish you success with your university course and with all the other projects that you're involved in. Once again, thank you.